And I love how at the end of the movie, they don't get rid of anxiety completely because we need anxiety is actually evolutionarily good for us. It's good to be like at a certain level, be alert what's happening. It's when it's too much of it that it just kind of seems to cloud over all our other emotions.
Hey, I'm Mariah, and I'm a filmmaker, and an ADHDer, and a writer, and a woman who deals with anxiety, and a photographer, and, okay, you get the picture. Hey, I'm Mariah. Did I say that already? And I'm a storyteller who cares a whole lot about mental health. A lot of times, we often separate storytelling and mental health from each other. Honestly, we tend to separate mental health from everything. But I find these two to go hand in hand. When you're telling a story, that point is to connect with your audience. On a deeper level, check this out. Connect with their mind. Storytelling is everything. Movies, music, video games, art, all of it. And mental health has a lot to offer too. Depression, autism, PTSD, and so on. I'm on a mission to understand and learn more about both storytelling and mental health. Whether it's digging deep into mental health disorders, checking out the psychology of characters from all over, dissecting the power of music on our emotions, hearing the personal stories of creatives, my goal is for us to be more seen, heard, understood, and learn who we are. Welcome to my podcast, Everything Storytelling, plus Mental Health. This is your host, Mariah Nasir, and let's dive right into it. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Everything Storytelling plus Mental Health. And today is a different kind of episode. And we're going all in about anxiety from Inside Out 2. So if you haven't seen Inside Out 2, and you don't want any spoilers, maybe don't listen to this episode. But if you don't care or you've seen it already, then listen to this episode because we're going all into anxiety and how it protects us from rejection. And also, aka anxiety is not the bad guy, so we're going to be talking about that. And today I have a very special guest with me, Valeria Rusnak. Valeria Rusnak is the host and producer of the Rejected Pre-Med podcast, a show dedicated to exploring resilience and mental awareness for the navigating setbacks and rejection. Through her podcast, Valeria shares stories and resources, interviewing guests who open up about their own journeys, all aimed at fostering compassion, self-reflection, and growth in the face of adversity. Living with strong tendencies toward anxiety and obsessive-compulsive disorder, Valeria offers support to anyone struggling with uncertainty in their path while navigating uncertainty in her own life. Based in Alberta, Canada, Valeria is passionate about helping listeners find strength and perspective, and she's excited to share her insights on Inside Out 2 in today's discussion. Thank you, Valeria, for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I love Inside Out.
I know, me too. I think I've seen Inside Out 2 probably 5 times already. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
really healthy
Oh,
or
wow.
not,
Okay,
but
you are a fan.
well, I just, well, yeah, I watched it 3 times in the
No
theater.
judgment
No,
here.
well, I
I love
watched it
it.
3 times in the theater, and you know what? No, I didn't watch it 5 times. I watched it 4 times. I take it back. I watched it 4 times. I know it
All
doesn't
good.
make it too much of a difference, but I watched it 3 times in the theater. One by myself, one with my best friend, and then the other one with my other best friend. And then I watched it on Disney Plus. So I watched it about 4 times already.
Amazing.
So, but
Amazing.
okay, I'm just curious about your podcast. How long have you been doing the podcast? And like, what made you get
Right.
started on it?
Right. So I guess the big push for me to do my podcast started because I was rejected from medical school. But not a lot of people know is that before I was rejected from medical school, there are other rejections that followed that. And it really takes a toll, especially for people. People tend to be self-critics, and pre-meds especially, they're very strong self-critics. And then I did not get in. I saw my friends who were also like pre-meds and they were applying to medical school, and they were above average in all categories, right? They have like the MCAT, like the high MCAT, which is it's the entrance exam. to medical school, they had very high scores in that. They have good extracurriculars. They're really good people, like all you could ask for. But sometimes it's just like there's not enough spots. So their fates really lie in the hands of admission committees who really have to make some difficult choices. But that said, it doesn't take away the pain that we all feel and how heartbroken we feel. And it's not like I don't want to say it's like the biggest problem in the world and make it dramatic, but also I realized there's no really official peer support network for people who are like going through similar through what I was going through and for my friends who are pre-meds to kind of support them and guide them and reassure them that everything's going to be okay, provide some mental wellness tips because we're in this time we're going to be very self-critical because we're going to think we're going to take rejection personally. And this is why that's what kind of led me to start this podcast. And then I also found out that there's a lot of podcasts intended for pre-meds. Like there are a lot of them, but they're either hosted by people who already are in medical school and they already have made it, even though they have their own hurdles, but they did get in already, or it's made by doctors. And there's no really pre-med podcast made by pre-meds who are in with them in the messy middle, trying to figure out what like do I apply? Do I not apply? How do I maintain my peace in the process? And that's kind of why I has started the podcast. Like, there's got to be like a pre-med who's like reassuring them too. So it's really kind of works as a peer support in a way. And then eventually I realized, well, rejection is not just faced by pre-meds. So I really started interviewing people from all walks of life who did face rejection, and it goes to show that everyone goes through it. It's a universal experience. Everyone experiences fear of rejection and fear of failure. We just don't talk about it enough. So I guess my one of my purposes with the podcast is just to for people to see that rejection can sting in the moment and it can really suck. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but also not view it as an innately negative thing that's going to ruin your life. Really, it could be a redirection. It could be see it as a potential opportunity, like basically. It can lead you to your right destination. It could lead you, it can really teach you a really good life lesson that will save your ass in the future. Like it leads you to something great. You just don't know. So see it as part of your development story, as an opportunity. And that's kind of the message I'm trying to send out, this rejection podcast. So yeah.
Well, I love that so much. I like how you brought up too how basically there's no really like no other podcast, especially for like those who are
At
in
least
like
that
the
not that I
medical.
know of. Maybe there
We
are.
they're probably
I don't know.
yeah. I mean,
I
yours is very
researched. I looked.
yeah. I mean, yours is very unique, just like mine. You know what I mean? Like, not many people talk about like topics like we do, like this. You know, they might
Mhm.
specifically have like doctors already in the school, or for me, there might be specifically creatives talking about just film or photography and things like
Mm.
that. But we're kind of
Mhm.
digging more deep into like for you example, you're talking about like rejection and just like the rejection of of med school. And then for me, I'm going all
Mhm.
into like the mental health side of things and the emotional journey as a creative
Yeah.
and in general and like storytelling. So I can just relate
Mhm.
to that because we're kind of doing our own thing and finding something different, because I feel like there are a lot of similar podcasts. Nothing wrong with like a lot of the similar podcasts. It's just like if you're doing something different, I
Mhm.
think that's cool and I can relate to your story. So
Yeah, thank you, thank you, and I always try to remind myself that even if there are similar podcasts, no one will do it like you do. You
exactly.
everyone has a unique approach. So,
Exactly, everyone
yeah.
does. There's a few there's a few like screenwriting podcasts I follow, and everyone's is different. I just like listening to the variety of different ones. And another one I listen to
Mm.
is like a few ADHD podcasts, and everyone is different. And I enjoy like the variety and diversity in that as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I'm actually just gonna go dive into like our mental health check-in. Um, so I would just start out with my mental health check-in of the week. I'm actually pretty good today. Like I'm pretty like happy and stuff. This is like my first time. I'm
Mm.
gonna be honest, y'all. This is my first time doing an episode really dissecting a character and stuff like that. So I'm a little nervous on that part. But other than that, I'm pretty like happy. Like I'm actually really excited about talking about this. I was really looking forward to this episode. Um, I mean, the beginning of my week, like sucked because, I actually been doing with a lot of rejections and stuff like that. So this is like the perfect time to talk about this episode. But like towards the end of
Mhm.
this week, it was really like more relaxing, and I got to see my friend yesterday. I got to relax. I wasn't feeling good like Thursday. I just like physically, I wasn't feeling that great, so I kind of had a rest day. Didn't go to work. But today now it's like it's Saturday, like the day we're recording this, and I'm happy. So I'm excited. Anyways, how about you?
Great. Oh, wow. I'm not gonna lie, this week has been a lot for me.
Okay.
It's been a lot. There's been a lot going on. It feels a bit heavy, but, everyone experiences weeks, days like this, so, you just gotta try and, focus. My goal today, after we're done this recording, which I'm also really looking forward to, is to just focus on self-care and just recharge a little bit, because it's been quite a busy week. It's just things coming from all over the place, and so yeah. That's where
Yeah,
I'm at.
okay. I feel that. I feel that. I feel like that's kind of usually my answer most of the time for every time I do a mental health
Mhm,
check-in. Which I guess
mhm.
it was still kind of that answer since it's been like a roller coaster week. But anyways, I
Mhm.
totally understand that. I feel that. But it's good to get those self care days, and I love them self care days.
Yes.
This, especially later on today, I'm definitely going to add in some more self care because I need that. I just need to relax. Might go to the park and get some sunshine before the
Yes.
sun sets because it likes to set early now, which I'm not happy about.
That's
But
right.
anyways.
Me too. Yeah.
So, all right. So, this is basically how this episode is going to play out. We're going to just talk about anxiety's character breakdown from Inside Out to how anxiety tries to protect us from rejection. And then we're going to like share some personal stories about us related to the movie, in regards to rejection. And then some tips and tricks to manage our anxiety. So, yeah, here we go. I'm going to first like bring up the whole synopsis of Inside Out 2. So, this is the part where, again, if you didn't watch the movie and you don't want any spoilers, yeah, maybe not listen to this episode until you watch the movie. But other than that, like if you don't care or you already seen the movie and you're ready, then here it is. So, okay. So Inside Out 2, synopsis. So, I mean, primarily, it focused on a 13-year-old girl named Riley who is going to her hockey camp. And she's about to start high school. And if you've seen the first movie, we have like the basic emotions like joy, sadness, fear, anger, and disgust. And these are the emotions in her head, which is basically called headquarters. And they created this new section in Riley's mind called sense of self, which is something we all have. It's basically like our belief system about ourselves. And right now, at the beginning of the movie, her says she's a good person. So as they're on their way to this hockey camp, Riley finds out that her, good friends are going to another high school. And this scares the crap out of Riley because she doesn't want to be alone in this new high school that she's going to. And then soon right after that, we have the new emotions that come into headquarters. We have ennui, which is boredom, embarrassment, envy, and best of all, good old anxiety. Okay, so now at this hockey camp, there is this team called the Firehawks, and this is the high school basically Riley is going to, and she wants to be a part of. Um, so anxiety sees this as an opportunity to do whatever it takes to be part of this team. So as the movie goes on, anxiety removes Riley's old sense of self and tries to build a new one. And she also kicks out all the old emotions because they're in the way. Um, and so they're in their own little
Mhm.
journey trying to get back to headquarters. Meanwhile, anxiety and all the other new emotions are basically kind of, I mean, I'm not trying to say ruining her life, but kind of are. Um, so while she's
A
at this
little bit.
camp,
A little bit, a little bit. They go out of
a little
control.
Yeah, they got a little bit out of control. I just like to exaggerate. They weren't entirely ruining her life. It's just anxiety kind of being really wild here at this moment. They were just kind of ruining this camp right now
Yes.
at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, anxiety basically and envy actually causes Riley to like ignore her old friends. So while also trying to get the Firehawks coach attention, and she's trying to make new friends as well with the Firehawks team. So of course I'm skipping a whole lot, but all this backfires. And when we get towards the end of the film, Riley's new sense of self that is now made by anxiety now says, I'm not good enough. So she tries to get the coach's attention during their game or scrimmage, or I'm not sure what you call it, so she can get picked for the team. Because a little before that, she snuck into the coach's office and see if she was going to get picked by the team. And she saw she's not ready yet, so that freaks her out more. So, but really freaks out anxiety out, which freaks her out more. So during this whole game, she's basically running on anxiety. There's nothing fun, or there's nothing, joy or anything like that she finds while playing this game. She is freaking out, trying to get the coach's attention, basically. Um, so
Mhm.
by doing this, she ends up accidentally hurting her old friend, and that freaks out anxiety, and she, gets into the penalty box. Riley does, and that causes anxiety to go spinning around in her head and causes her to have a panic attack. Now, of course, this is a Pixar movie, so this is going to be a good ending, of course. Joy and the emotions make it back, and Riley calms down, and she asks her friends to forgive her, and of course, they forgive her because it's a Pixar movie, so you have to have a good ending. And then anxiety realizes she was wrong, and they all live happily ever after. That was my
Great
first, y'all.
synopsis.
I'm pretty proud. That was my version of the whole synopsis. I did look a little
I
bit at
love it.
the. Thank you. That was my version. I did skip a whole lot of details, but if you didn't watch the movie, go watch it. So I think I did a
Right
good
on.
job actually explaining the basic plot of the movie.
You did. You did. Give yourself a pat on the back.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I was like, oh man, I hope I explained this right. I hope it makes sense. So, anyways, I think yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself. Thank you.
Yes, you should be.
Okay. All right. So let's go all into like anxiety's character breakdown. So, like the
Mhm,
first thing I want to like talk about is that
mhm,
anxiety is an antagonist, not the villain. Um, so I'm not sure, I don't know. So I just feel like a lot of people think they're the same thing, and they are not.
mhm.
Antagonists
Yeah.
defy the conventional traits of most villains. Most villains, I mean, they're just really basically evil. If you think about the classic villains like Jafar from Aladdin, or Ursula, I think that's her name, from Little Mermaid.
Mhm,
They're
mhm.
legit evil. They don't have any good intentions. Their
Yeah,
intentions are honestly bad. They just want to
yeah.
rule the world or country or whatever, and and they're also
Yes.
trying to kill people. So
Yeah,
they're
yes.
basically villains. Antagonists don't actually have those type of intentions. Their intentions are generally good. They just go about it wrong. So that's generally like the difference between antagonists
Mhm.
and villains. But
Yeah,
antagonists are pretty hard to write, and the way this movie portrayed it is really good. I'm trying to think of
yes.
other movies with antagonists, and they're not coming to my head. I've seen probably a few, but this one is probably like the best, like well written antagonist I've seen. Um,
I agree. They make her
yeah,
she's relatable.
she's
She's
very relatable.
relatable,
That's
I think that's part of what makes people kinda be drawn to her and not necessarily hate her, but at the same time, they're kind of terrified and obviously know that what she's doing is kinda wrong, even if it is for good even if it is justified for her. She's like an
it,
overbearing parent in a way, but
yeah, I definitely agree. It's like this, like what you said, she's relatable. So those are basically like likable traits that she has, like her intelligence, her determination,
mm,
her quirky, kind of awkward personality as well, which we can relate to as well. It's very likable. And so these same traits as well. with, like, for example, her determination, and then if you add that in with some positive goals, um, that kind of makes her scary or intimidating. So for
Yes.
example, if her determination is to do whatever it takes for Riley to get into the Firehawks team. So she's basically stopping all the other emotions, joy, sadness, anger, disgust, fear. She stops all of them, kicks them out, and she's also just taking control of Riley, honestly, and changing
Mhm.
Riley's sense of self. And I mean, the way she kind of, the way she took control of that because of her determination was
Mhm.
pretty intimidating. Um, hey, what are your thoughts on that? Because
Yes.
I feel I would just keep talking and talking, but
Oh, good. All good. I feel like, because I have a lot of, it's I especially when I was studying for, like, medical school exams and stuff, like, I had a lot of anxiety, so, really seeing that portrayed in a movie that way, like, for people for kids to understand, I really loved how they did it because she really had the best intentions. She, like, really planned ahead and just, like, "I'll plan the future," and then it's just so heartbreaking because eventually the sense of self was like, "I'm not good enough." Um, because it's not about always living in the future, which is what really anxiety was about, and to her, that seemed like the right thing, and for me, that seemed like the right thing when I was really anxious. I was like, "Forget, like, having fun. Forget living in the moment. I need to plan for the future," but eventually I thought that would lead me to be more productive, to have me, like, better scores on tests, but eventually it only made it worse because, I just couldn't focus anymore. My lack of kind of rest and self-care and the kind of the I was unintentionally pushing joy away, let's just, like, use, like, movie analogies, because I was trying so hard to succeed, and I think they show that really well, and then I'm not sure if it's too early in the episode to bring up joy as well, because it really shows that joy and living in the moment is what will help manage anxiety, and I love how at the end of the movie, they don't get rid of anxiety completely because we need anxiety is actually evolutionarily good for us. It's good to be like on a certain level, be alert what's happening. It's when it's too much of it that it just kind of seems to cloud over all our other emotions, which is not healthy because we should, well, ideally, we should allow different emotions to work in balance with each other, not one being super high up and then the others are
hmm
kind of low down there. It will cause an imbalance and have a negative impact on our mental well-being. So, and I really love how they show that. And I think the original design for anxiety was a monster, and I think they kind of got rid of that. Um, right? Because that was in one of
yes,
the like videos I did research like with, and
yes,
I really love how they did not make it into a monster because really it is a very essential part of who we are. It's just
hmm
it's just really finding the balance, how to balance it with joy because and joy, living in the moment is what adds to our fulfillment in life. And if we're always chasing for the next goal or chasing towards the future, we won't truly be happy with ourselves and the world around us. And I really love how they show that because at the end, anxiety's still there, but they're just like, "Here, sit, relax, chill, we'll take control, like, you can sit here until we need you next time," or something like that. And
hmm
I love how they're working together. It shows it's a very healthy, um, combination. And also, one of the videos I watched, they made a point, about, like, doing a breakdown in Inside Out too. They said, like, in real life, like, what Riley went through in this I'm not sure how long this lasted for her, how, like, she went to school and maybe it was, like, several days for her or, like, a week or 2 in the camp. But in real life, it takes people years, decades even, to get to the point where Riley gets at the end of the movie. They just like you said, Pixar needs to have a good ending, and they need to get to that end point where everything ends good. And ideally, in real life, that would also be a good ending where you recognize that uh, life has some good experiences, bad experiences, and we should not let anxiety take control over our lives completely. So I just yeah, it just we shouldn't feel bad when we see a 13-year-old girl kind of go through it all and kind of figure it out because as much as we want the same for us, we don't always it may take us a while to get there, but it's a good end point, really. So,
exactly.
yeah, that's what
I
I have to
thought
say.
it's funny how you brought that up. I will say I thought about that too. I was thinking, dang, when Riley's my age, she's gonna be very emotionally mature. She's just gonna be
Exactly, like
so emotionally mature. But you know what? That's it might be good for people like her age now because we didn't get that
Mhm,
when we were her age. And that's really like that's helpful for teenagers now to see that. And so I think that would be very helpful. Um just like
mhm,
going through life and understanding like your emotions like that. I just wish that was something we had when we were
exactly.
younger. It's
Yeah,
but
it's
I
not
did
really
think
taught in
about that.
schools.
It's definitely not. It's definitely taught by life. Um,
I
so
love that. Yes.
so yes, I definitely agree. Um, and so I just like adding in onto that. Anxiety's belief system is basically if Riley gets rejected from the Firehawks team by both the coach and the teammates on the team, she will be alone in high school and possibly the rest of her life because that's how anxiety thinks of stuff. Um,
Mhm,
and I
catastrophizing everything.
Yep, just exaggerating things extremely, and
Mhm,
I can
mhm,
relate to that. I mean, it's kind of like a black and white way of thinking. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but like you either
mhm,
it's either something good's gonna happen or it's something terrible is happening. And there's no in between. But in reality, that's not how life is. It's basically different
mhm.
shades of gray. I like to think of it as honestly different colors of the rainbow spectrum, honestly, because I like colors. But I just like to
No,
think
it's
of it like
true.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I don't
And
know if
we
you want.
change throughout life too. Like, we change, our sense of self always changes. We can try, but we cannot truly predict what will happen to us in 5 years.
Um, I was
Uh-huh.
going to like saying like so anxiety's want is that she wants Riley to make the Firehawks team so she won't be
Mhm,
alone. We see
mhm,
anxiety doing whatever it takes for Riley to make the Firehawks team. And we see that by her kicking out the emotions. Even though Riley, not Riley, when even though anxiety knows some of the stuff she's doing is wrong, she really believes she's helping Riley. And so she
mhm,
adds in all these anxious memories and tries to make this sense of self where she's thinking it's going to be better than the old sense of self saying I'm a good person. And when the time comes when it says I'm not good enough, anxiety is like shocked because she was not expecting that.
mhm.
She's like,
Yeah. You can
something's
kinda see
wrong
the
here.
heartbreak on her face. You
Yeah,
can see how
yeah,
sad
she's
she looks, and you kind of feel bad for her, like, and it's just like, "Oh, no."
exactly.
Like, what is gonna happen now? And you're really pulled
Exactly,
into the
but
story.
exactly, but I think that's like a good example of like when you allow anxiety to plan things, things usually that's not how you want it. That's usually things turn out the way you're not expecting it to be. In a negative
Mhm,
way when
mhm.
anxiety takes over. And I think that was like a good way of like showing that. Um, but I like just
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
but no, you're
I
totally
was I
good.
was just gonna yeah, I was just gonna share again, not sure if it's too early in the episode, but I was just gonna share because when they portrayed and like Riley, is it a panic attack or an anxiety attack? What did she have?
I know I said in
It's
synopsis
either
panic. I don't know if it's
panic attack. You said panic attack.
I
Well,
said panic, but
and
I don't know if it's I think it's a panic attack, but also not
yeah,
a
okay.
specialist. So
Yeah, I
it's
was
one of the two, but she definitely had some type of an attack. So
definitely an
uh,
attack
uh,
for sure. Yeah, so when she was experiencing that and I was watching that in the movie theaters, I remember I felt that it was portrayed so accurately, like the blurred vision, the heartbeat, the kind of the sound going out and kind of feeling numb. Oh god, like I felt that during one of my MCAT attempts. I wrote it most people write it once. Again, the medical college admission test, the entrance exam to medical school. Most people write it once. I wrote it 3 times. During one of my, attempts, I was getting the same thing, and it was during the test, the timer is going, and I could really feel what she was feeling in the movie. They portrayed it so well that when I was watching the movie, I started feeling triggered. I was like, "Oh my god, this is so similar." I started being so nervous. So at the end of the movie, I actually came out I was really happy with that I saw it because I really loved it, but I also came out being feeling a mix of emotions, sad, but also sad and happy that everything worked out at the end, but also I was feeling quite anxious. And I think it took me like a few days, if I'm being honest, to fully get over that feeling. Like, the ones that builds in your chest of like nervousness, you
Mhm.
know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
That feeling.
Mhm.
And it took me a while to get over that. But the fact that it really felt like I wasn't I'm also a bit of an empath, so maybe I kind of put myself in her shoes, but also the fact that I do know what anxiety feels like, and I do know what an attack feels like. They basically kudos to the movie, kudos to the animators, the sound producer, just for doing that because they portrayed it really well. Mhm.
Yeah, I agree too. That was honestly very perfect. I remember like when it just showed that scene and everything. I also just could relate to it just in my own life. Just I have many examples,
Mhm.
I guess. I never like honestly never fully understood if I ever really had like a panic or anxiety attack. But some of the symptoms she was
Mhm.
having, I definitely like could relate to, and I definitely felt that a lot. I mean, sometimes I felt some of that stuff when I was taking tests, for example, but I definitely felt
Mhm.
it a lot. For example, when I was an athlete in high school, middle school, I definitely felt that a lot right before like the race started. I always hated the before a race. It wasn't the during.
Mhm.
Um, part that I was scared of, honestly, it was the before part I was scared of just
Yeah.
because it was uncomfortable because I was like dealing with extreme anxiety. So the
And
way
it builds
they
up on itself too.
exactly,
Like the anxiety builds up
exactly,
on itself. Yeah.
exactly. And then when we see Riley like running basically on anxiety through that whole scrimmage or game. That's basically how I
Mhm.
felt a lot of times when I was running in high school. I mean, I was basically running on anxiety at that point. There was no joy. I wasn't like a fan. I wasn't really a fan of running in general, anyways. It wasn't like a strong passion of mine. So
Right.
when I was like running, doing races and stuff like that, it was basically on anxiety. Um, 'Cause, I mean, I was a good
Yeah.
runner and people expected me to do good, um, and I just could relate to that, so that was
It's a lot
perfect
of pressure.
example. It's so much
Yeah,
pressure.
it's a lot of pressure. And it's
Yeah.
good that you acknowledge that you were running on anxiety because I feel that so many people do run on anxiety and don't necessarily recognize it, and it's already like a normal thing for them, where they think it's normal, and it just makes people, I feel, I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but I feel like it's just not really super good for mental health, and eventually it does come to things like burnout, or I know I've had several like breakdowns where I was crying and just so much emotions that I've suppressed that kind of come out. And when you suppress emotions, eventually they come out. And
Mhm.
so yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Exactly, exactly. It was something in my head, but I forgot, so I'm gonna
All
continue,
good.
but
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's the perfect explanation of like anxiety's drive though and her like her belief system. And that's something that we can relate to. Because we are trying hard to
Mhm.
basically not get rejected. So, you know, this extreme
Mhm.
bad thing won't happen in our lives. And anxiety's
Mhm.
want is her obsession because I mean, she's very obsessed of making sure Riley gets on that team, and which is like honestly like very dangerous because we saw what happened and it led to her, um, one of her good friends getting hurt. And then she gets a panic attack. So we saw how that happened. So,
Mhm.
but we're gonna
Mhm.
move into like specific examples of anxiety protecting Riley from rejection. We kind of touched based on it a little bit already, but like just digging
Mhm.
deep. Um, Anxiety, for example, causes Riley to ditch her old friends. So, for example, when they're at that, I guess chilling at the lounge when Riley was with, I guess, her new
Yeah.
friends, with the
Mhm.
Firehawks
Mhm.
team, and
You're right.
she was denying like her favorite childhood song because the girl was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you don't still like that, right?" And she's like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like that." Or basically being
Mhm.
sarcastic, and then her old friends like kind of overheard that and like, what are you talking about? You totally love that song. And then she was being sarcastic, like, oh yeah, I so love that song. And then
Ennui came in.
yeah,
The emotion.
ennui.
Yeah, I remember
Basically.
that.
Yeah. And
And
they were
it's
like,
like Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm pretty done. Go ahead.
And like you said, it's that a lot of the anxiety comes from fear of failure, fear of being alone, or fear of being rejected. I think it goes into those three categories quite well. And in this case, Riley was experiencing a fear of social rejection. She and fear of being alone because like we was said that her old friends turned out to be there turned out that they're going to be going to a different school, and now she has these new friends. She doesn't want to be alone, and she also doesn't want to be rejected by them. So yeah, so a lot of the I think anxiety stems from these fears that we have.
Exactly. I think in a way, Riley might have felt she was rejected by her old friends by them going to the
Oh, yeah.
other high school. Um,
Mm,
I mean, of course, that wasn't like they're were purposely,
mhm.
trying to like reject her or anything like
Yeah.
that. But in Riley's eyes, it probably felt like that. It kind of probably felt like a personal attack
Mhm,
that her good friends are not going to the same school like her. Um, and so now since she kind of feels that way, they're not going to the same school. She has a choice between still chilling out with her old friends or getting
mhm,
accepted into this new friend group. And so when that happened with the whole song thing, that's why she basically rejected them because I guess again she probably felt rejected by them and she wants to get accepted into this new friend group. Um,
which
so
again
I don't.
is very relatable.
Yeah.
It's very relatable, it's nice that they showed it, and I think the movie at the end shows that it's okay to have bad experiences, it's okay to experience, it's okay to feel that, we all are human. We're not all saints. We can be good people, but still make mistakes sometimes, as long as you take accountability for it. Because eventually, she does apologize to her friends. She does correct for the mistakes that she made. I really like how they don't sugarcoat it, and they just showed it how many people, especially teenagers, who might experience that.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have done that. Being honest, like I've done some stuff like that. With other,
Mhm,
I want to say, like this is, for example, there was this one girl in middle school that people didn't see her as socially acceptable at that time in the middle school, and
mhm,
I was also not really socially accepted that much, except for people acknowledging my running. So I think that's the whole
right.
thing. I'll get into it later, but I
Mhm,
didn't want to be seen around her as much because I didn't want to be rejected um, by the other
mhm,
students,
yeah,
and so I kind of tried. I honestly was like mean to her and didn't. Um, I didn't want to
mhm.
like hang out with her or anything. But then eventually, after a while, like after I think a year or two later, I eventually started to not care, and became friends with her. It's
Mhm.
actually funny because I was rejected by one of my best friends in middle school at the time. She found this new friend group, and she just kind of basically dropped me, and I couldn't.
Oh,
I mean, like
mhm,
again, it's just like I can just relate to the whole movie and everything, but after that point, it was a point where I just didn't care anymore. It's like I don't care what people think, and I eventually became friends with that girl. So it's just like,
good
but
good
at the
though. You really
yeah.
followed you went from your you wanted to be friends with her, so you did. You didn't let fear stop you. And I think one of the main messages of the movie too is like don't operate as much as possible at least. Don't operate from fear, operate from
Mhm.
desire. Like join the team because you actually like hockey. Be friends
Mhm.
with people because you want to be friends with them, not because of the fear that you end up alone. And I feel like
Mhm.
if we build our identity on doing things based on fear, and because we're fear being alone, we fear not being successful, we fear being rejected, um, eventually we're not really living our life according to our true inner values. So really do try to do things from love and desire and not from fear because that leads to some not really good choices. So yeah.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I just like going through some other examples too with Riley.
Mm,
Um, and anxiety protecting her from rejection. We already like discussed
mm,
basically about Riley trying going super hard during that whole hockey game and that scrimmage at the camp and everything like
mhm.
that. We also didn't talk about Riley sneaking in to her coach's office
All right.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
trying to see if
Yeah.
she got, yeah, accepted or not. And of course it said needs more. I think she said needs more work or whatever, or not ready yet. That's what it said, not ready yet. So that
Mhm,
of course
mhm, and
spikes
she
your
was so
anxiety up.
devastated. Yeah.
Yes,
Ooh.
that she was. I will say I have my thoughts about that coach too. I I
Yeah?
know.
Okay, okay.
Well, okay, this is a little off topic now, but like I don't know. She. I mean, I get why the coach was annoyed some parts, but I think the coach was a little mean at certain parts. I mean, I just hated how she took away everybody's phones because I mean, this is like Riley and her friends were just nude and they were just laughing, and then she just decided, oh,
Mhm.
I'm gonna just punish everybody and take away all their phones, and then of course people are gonna get mad at Riley specifically, like. I don't know. It's just like
Yeah,
you're
really
just kind
adds
of
for
causing
sure.
you're causing more pain. I feel like that made things worse for Riley. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, there's definitely different ways to coach, and that was her approach.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just my thoughts. I just feel like that coach.
No,
Uh,
I feel that.
yeah, I feel like. I mean, that coach wasn't like terrible. I can see why she would get like annoyed and stuff because thought like
Mhm.
Riley and stuff was being disrespectful. But she didn't have to take the whole team's phone because how's that
She
gonna look
didn't.
on Riley? You know. So
Yeah. Yeah, we don't
so
wanna
I
put her in the corner.
Yeah, she really did. She really put her in the corner. Anyways, those are my
Yeah,
thoughts. A little off topic, but the coach just kind of
no
annoyed me.
problem.
For unpopular opinions, but yeah,
That's fine.
yeah. Okay, but going back, I think just like the fact that when Riley, like anxiety, was trying to protect Riley from rejection by sneaking
Mhm.
into the coach's office and seeing if she basically put her on the team or not. And so when it said not ready yet, it's like we need to try hard. And I remember anxiety bringing in that giant big idea, that big light bulb idea, and again, that's the whole idea of her basically running on anxiety in that scrimmage game, which
Yeah,
causes
yeah,
the
I
whole
agree.
issue.
Yeah, she's not Riley at that point is not thinking clearly. First of all, she doesn't have her basic emotions, like the ones that were always there with her, like joy, sad, and sadness and anger, with her. So I think that really adds to the stress, and she's not even recognized that she's done that, that she's kind of suppressed them or her anxiety has suppressed them. So I think there's that. And also, I feel I I don't think that doesn't make her a bad person, like, we shouldn't judge her for it, and I'm gonna draw a parallel to my experience with how I kind of had similar for example, when I felt anxious, when it was at its peak, I remember I knew logically, I knew I shouldn't get up in the middle of the night and check my notes, but my anxiety was pushing me to do it. So Riley was so wanted to be sure that she was on the team, it's like her whole identity depended on it, that she went in the middle of the night and checked, like, the folder. For me, that looked like waking up in the middle of the night and checking over several notes again and again and again and again, and that's just kind of it felt I was already feeling exhausted from that, and I didn't have a good night, like, sleep, so I think it's that reassurance that you want, that you are good enough, that you are worthy, that what was driving Riley, sadly. Um, and I think at that point when it happened, I'm not sure, and correct me if I'm wrong. I remember when they show anxiety kind of running the show, and there's like little office workers in their little office cubicles, and the cubicles
Mhm.
are marked by like cards, and cards are known to like you can tell the future. So really, and because anxiety is so worried about the
Huh.
future, I kind of saw like what a cute visual, like not a cute, but like what a interesting visual they decided to portray that, like that the cubicles are made of like cards that fortune tellers, I don't know, like, use to, like,
Oh,
tell the
cool.
future. So,
I didn't
yeah,
realize those were the
so
type of cards.
I don't like, I'm not sure if they are, but it's just, like, it's int I just made that connection, like, it's just, like, because why else would
Uh
they
huh.
pick those cards? And it's just, like, basic because it's trying to tell the future, and
Yeah.
she's so stressed about that. I'm not sure when that happens, after the sneaking in or during the sneaking in or right before, but I think,
I think it was right
yeah,
before. But I like
right
that
before.
scene too. Yeah, because those are the workers, like, they're the ones
Yeah.
that basically drive Riley's imagination. And I think that's really
Yeah.
like a powerful one they did because
Mhm.
like I remember Joy
It really
saying,
showed
"D-
how
ex-
anxiety really took over, like, a whole
yeah,
freaking corporate office right there just dedicated to her anxious, imaginative, like,
yes.
things that might happen.
Yes. Yes, but I also like what Joyce said saying, like, anxiety is using her own imagine against Riley, basically, and I'm like, "So
Mhm.
true, because I'm a creative person, and if I'm not I have noticed, like, if I'm not really being as creative, my creativity will go in a different way, negatively, and so my anxiety will use that and say, "Okay, let's do this," and make all these crazy scenarios. I mean,
That's
I can
true.
tell you right now, I have a wild imagination when it comes to anxiety, and so I like to think about sometimes if I'm, like, on a writer's block or I'm stuck on thinking ideas, I'm thinking, "Oh, man, like, having some low self-esteem moments. I'm thinking, oh man,
Mhm.
I'm not good at coming up with ideas. I think, well, I have anxiety and I have some extreme imagination, whatever stuff going on in my head a lot of times. So that's not true at all. Besides, I've done a lot of creative stuff in the past, so that's not true.
Mhm.
But I'm a little going
Yes.
sidetracked, but I just like the
No, no,
whole.
you're right though. Like these thoughts, they creep up. Like if you really gotta be aware to and for you and like I know that for me when I do something creative or I like, I go out, I will go into the park and kind of um push in a way, not ignore my anxious thoughts, but kind of calm myself down, saying that's not true. Like being very patient with yourself, being very patient with your anxious self and tell that, like, "You're okay, you're doing fine, you're thinking of the worst thing. Let's think of the best thing that might happen, like, that could happen too." So, yeah, you're really kind of reassuring yourself, and it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress, especially if you're just coming out of an anxious state. You really gotta be patient with yourself, and eventually, your neural networks would rewire, and, uh,
Mhm.
they would think, like, "Okay, I'm still good, I still have all this." So it's really nice to practice gratitude and remind yourself of the things you've already accomplished.
Hey, that is part one of the podcast episode. Stay tuned in about 2 weeks for part two, where we dive more into anxiety's character, talking about our personal stories, and learning how to manage anxiety from rejection. See you guys soon. Hey, if you listened to this entire episode, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to my podcast. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. And if you like what you heard, or you have your feedback or thoughts, please just leave them in the comments and ratings. I would appreciate it. Your feedback means everything to me. And if you want to keep up with more of what's going on with this podcast and know more about the life of Mariah, then follow me on the gram. That is at everything story mental health. But it's also in the description because I know that's a pretty long title. So, again, thank you so much and have a wonderful week.